The two biggest fears people have are public speaking, followed by death. And since dying didn't kill me, I figured I'd give public speaking a shot. Yes, I have died a couple of times, actually, nearly. My first near-death experience, I was 18. And no, this movie-esque montage of my life didn't flash before my eyes. It was softer, quieter, as delicate as it was violent, and pretty simple and straightforward. I mean, one minute I was living, and then the next I was dying. At one point, it was no more scary or dramatic than folding the laundry or reading your favorite book. Dying has taught me many things, but one thing it has taught me is that it's not just for our bodies. It is this frequent, repetitive action we take anytime we have a major life shift, whether it's to our careers, our sense of self, our beliefs, or our relationships. And it is inextricably adhered to grief. Grief, like dying, is involuntary. You best believe you are going to do it if you aren't already. But the question is, are you working with your grief, or is your grief working you? Unprocessed grief, that is our calling card to the world. It touches every experience and every relationship. It's an essential part of our story. So it's going to command an audience. And when we don't listen to the story that our grief is trying to tell us, when we protest becoming the main character in these chapters of our story, grief gets petty. It acts out through our bodies, our institutions, and to other human beings in very treacherous ways. Our grief stories, they're not only about us. We don't grieve alone. But the problem isn't the grief or the dying. It's that as a culture, we've lost tools, community support, and holistic methods to help us navigate it. To start reclaiming these, we need to reframe, to stop seeing death as fixed and grief as performative. Your life is not a performance. Your grief doesn't need you to get into character. It needs you to have character. Instead, we honor our many life transitions and their grief stories as temporary, critical, powerful, and even beautiful chapters in our story. This is going to require integration. Integrating your experiences, not separating them. That is the medicine. So my offering to you today, through my lens as a writer, a daughter, a mother, and a holistic lifestylist, is to find dignity and empowerment in your grief through the art of story. My mother died of heart disease, but she and I both know that she died of a broken heart. In holistic wellness, we honor that cause, prevention, and remedy for dis-ease in the body that goes beyond diet and exercise. In order to heal, we have to be able to find ease in our daily lives. So this is a concept that modern science is starting to acknowledge through concepts like cortisol levels, nervous system regulation, mental health, and the profound impacts of grief and stress on our physiological heart. My mother, like the rest of us, she lived in a world that coerces our grief into an indefinite state of suspension. And it took its toll. Through her, death taught me another lesson. Time does not heal the wound. We need more. My mother was one of 6 women to transition that year. On top of political violence, white supremacist surges, career shifts, a global pandemic, and about 24 other literal and metaphorical deaths. Those 2 years earned me the complex accumulative grief Girl Scout badge. Yes, that was my official diagnosis. But, now what? Clearly, stoicism in the face of our losses isn't serving us, and neither is busy work, denial, doom scrolling. In the bowels of grief, I realized I had a choice to make. Main character energy for real, and integrate or continue the cycle. So I picked up the one tool I knew I still had, my pen. But first, y'all, I need better words. Our current language on death, it tells us it's something we'll become, that we're living, and then we will one day be dead. And because grief is the twin limb of dying, we conceptualize it in the same way. Our fear being that we're going to become our losses, our sorrow, our shame, and our regrets. But speaking from firsthand experience, not to brag or anything, death is a verb. And verbs have beginnings and they have endings. You start doing the thing, you do the thing ends, and then you go do something else. The truth is, we spend our lives dying often and in many fonts. The death of the maiden as she becomes a mother, the death of one future for another when we have an unexpected move or go through a messy breakup. So let's start looking at these actions like any other, understanding better what you already know, that our ability to carry out any action with dignity, integrity, and competence, that makes for a meaningful life. Better words, and then we craft. So in writing fiction, sometimes writers will use this method called reverse engineering. So that means we start at the end of a story, and then we work our way back to the beginning. So like a maze, you know where you are, and then you know where you want to get to. Turns out this works out pretty good for grief too. You must craft a magical, loving ending to these chapters of your story. That ending, it becomes your shining star through the maze of grief. It tells you when to turn, how to avoid plot holes, dodge shady side characters. And it gives you courage when you hit those inevitable dead ends. Hold on to that ending. Even when it feels scary or impossible or distant, hold on to it, shine, make it yours, write and rewrite it as many times as you need to. You write, you edit, you repeat, you edit, you repeat. You take a deep breath and you sip a little bit of wine and you question all your choices and then you edit some more. As any writer or TEDx speaker will tell you, writing is consuming. And it is absolutely essential for a good story. When I got the call about my cousin passing, my body didn't know what to do with the grief. So it picked up a bowl and it threw it across the room. After that, my son, who had just turned 4, he started speaking repeatedly about this spoon. Every time he was earnest, upset, and very accusatory. It took me the better part of a year to figure out what he was trying to tell me. Not spoon, bowl. The bowl I threw that day had his breakfast in it. He had left it out on the table like he always does so he could eat and play at his leisure. It was such a simple symbol of safety, sustenance, stability, and trust. And I had broken it. A tear of relief rolled down my sweet baby's face when his grief had been acknowledged. He had been seen and acknowledged. Of course, it wasn't just about the bowl that day. His mother had broken too. I invited him to sit on the floor with me, crisscross applesauce. I explained to him what had happened and why it had happened. Through my own tears, I told him that nothing that was happening in our home or out in the world was his fault. And then I promised him I was going to continue finding better tools to help us both navigate the difficult feelings and situations we were in. That moment solidified for me that my child would inevitably carry any parts of my story I didn't have the courage or the tools to face. And as a mother, I find that unacceptable. It wasn't about what had happened anymore. It was about not letting it dictate what happened next. And I couldn't hold space for my child's story without first taking accountability for my own. It wasn't my fault that I didn't have the tools to edit pain. It wasn't my mother's, and it wasn't her parents either. But being faultless doesn't abdicate me of the responsibility of making edits to my bloodline and to my family's future story. Me and my son, we weren't grieving alone anymore. We were healing together. A different story, a new ending, one conversation changed everything. my ability to show up for him, for myself, and for others. Editing, it sucks, but it is so worth it. We can't edit forever, though. Sometimes writers, we will send a piece out into the world knowing it isn't perfect, but it's the best we have to offer the world at the time. Ironically, hitting publish on your grief story, it's going to bring one more wave of grief, because living isn't theoretical anymore. You aren't thinking about how you're going to live your life. You are actually doing it. And that is terrifying. Opening yourself up, this new version of you, all the uncertainties and how you will be received by the world. One January, I couldn't put a foot out of bed. The next, I was launching Rose and Honey, the herb shop me and my mom always dreamed we'd open up together. One spring, all I could do was lay in the grass and stare at the clovers. The next, I look up and my name's on a building for a poem that I wrote. And every win was a mess. I didn't feel ready or prepared. I wasn't happy for these wins. I was just somehow relieved that I made it across the finish line. And that's okay, because the more we publish, the better we get. The more we integrate our story, the stronger we become. Beloved, it's never going to be perfect, but you have to hit publish. Integrate. Integrating your story, it brings peace. Before we can handle all the pain out there, we have to be able to handle the pain in here. Remember, you have a role to play in our collective story. Remember how far love has brought you and how far it's still telling you to go. We need you. We need you to do what you came here to do. So go live. Find better words. Craft magic. Make those edits. Publish your mess. Not the end.